Aloha. I have 4 o'clock and we try and start on time. And I know there are some people that are working their way over from another session, but we appreciate you being here and we're going to go ahead and get started. For those of you who I have not met before, my name is Tina Jordan and I am the Vice President of Membership for FCA International. For those of you who may not know, FCA's emerging leaders are made up of our members who are aged 40 and under. And I want to stress, though, that our panelists that are here with us today are not here solely because of their age. They're here because they have their expertise and their experience in their field, and they just happen to be under the age of 40. We appreciate your time and your support for our panelists today. You're in for a great session, as our emerging leaders always have dynamic perspectives, dynamic interchange of ideas on AI, IT, and cyber, and it's always really interesting to hear what they have to say. This panel would not be possible without our sponsor, IBM. So I want to sincerely thank IBM for their generous support of FCA and the generous support of our emerging leaders. They're the future of our organization. I would like to invite Terry Halverson, VP of Federal Client Development at IBM, to say a few words about IBM and to introduce today's panel. So please join me in a warm FCA welcome for Terry Halverson.
Well, let me first thank FCA International and FCA Hawaii for hosting another outstanding TechNet Indo-Pacific conference. 2023 was excellent, as it has been historically, and it will continue, I'm sure, to be a great event. We're a proud supporting sponsor of this, and I think it is very fitting that IBM is introducing a panel about disruption in AI. IBM has been a long-time leader in AI, but not just in the technology. We've also been a leader in the process and the ethical use and responsible use of AI, and I'm very glad this panel is going to talk about all of those aspects. It's also a privilege to introduce some of our new leaders. I was just thinking about this. It's been 43 years since I held the rank of second lieutenant. Lots of things have changed, but as Linda has told me, you're old, so keep this short. Alex Dickerson, second lieutenant, Air Force, is going to moderate the panel today. 4th generation of service in the military. She is the OIC of the Operation Flight C2 networks for 10 bases. That's a big deal. As a second lieutenant, that's a lot of responsibility. And I think, again, this is interesting that we're going to have today all of these new leaders, or younger leaders, we probably should say 40, that are going to be the people, all of you four are going to be the people that actually deploy to the services the new technologies like AI. So I'm very glad that we've got people like yourselves that are up and coming and will be standing, hopefully 23 years in positions like this, introducing the panel. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Aloha, everyone. Thank you, Terry Halverson, for the introduction, and thank you, IBM, for sponsoring this panel. So I would now like to introduce our lovely panel members for today, starting from left to right. First is Peter Guo, who serves in the Chief Information Officer for U.S. Naval Ship Repair Facility, Japan. As the youngest CIO in the Navy, he is responsible for leading a team of over 75 U.S. and Japanese government personnel to safely operate and modernize the Navy's largest overseas network, spanning across Japan and Singapore. Peter is a veteran in the U.S. Navy, serving tours both forward deployed in Japan as a surface warfare officer and at the Pentagon as the information professional officer in various technology leadership roles, to include a co-founder of Black Pearl, a Navy startup. Prior to his current role, he served as the implementation architect at Immuta. As one of the youngest leaders within the U.S. government, Peter's success is credited to his passion for building and empowering teams, creating an inclusive work culture, and investing in personal growth. Next is Ms. Lauren Hobbs, who is the Federal Account Executive for the Defense Business Vertical at UiPath Public Sector. Lauren has spent the last 8 years positioning cybersecurity solutions and automation solutions across the Department of Defense. Most recently, she was the regional sales manager for defense sales at Palo Alto Networks. She has experience developing and implementing strategic sales initiatives tailored to bolster the DoD's mission objectives. She is dedicated to delivering innovative solutions that directly contribute to enhancing national security and operational effectiveness. She aims to be a trusted partner and advisor, empowering the DoD to leverage technology solutions efficiently while ensuring the highest standards of responsibility and security. Prior to joining the federal IT sales industry, Lauren graduated from University of Maryland Global Campus with a Bachelor of Business Administration. Lauren, her husband, Ryan, and her daughter, Harper, live in Wilmington, North Carolina. She enjoys spending time with her family at the beach, taking a boat out to go fishing, and going for a ride with her husband on their motorcycles. And next up is Vincent Goldsmith, a Chief Solutions Architect for Booz Allen Hamilton, supporting delivery here on island and in the Indo-Pacific region, is specialized in enabling AI delivery and integration. Starting his career back in D.C. in 2015, Vince has gained a wide range of experience across software development, data orchestration, DevScopes, environment configuration, and AI/ML integration. While currently supporting the USARPAC G2 PACPED as they work through their big data challenges, Vince also provides oversight for Navy, Air Force, and U.S. Indo-PACOM technical solutioning across the region as we continue to work towards joint interoperability and data federations. So please give a hand for our panelist members. So now we'll move into the discussion portion of the panel. We'll start out with a couple questions for our specific panel members for about 10 minutes. And if we have time, the panel members can feel free to answer the question as well, even if it's not directed to them. So first up, we'll start with Peter for the first question. So what are the capabilities and features within AI and machine learning that the DoD is looking to explore in the next 5 years, and which technologies are being prioritized?
Awesome. Thanks, Alex. Ooh, this is sensitive. I'm a loud talker, sorry. Yeah, hi, everybody. My name's Peter. I'm very excited to be here, so thank you so much for the opportunity. Biggest thing, I'm a Navy guy through and through, so at least from a DoD perspective, I'm going to at least just give the shipyard perspective at the very first. All of these are my own opinions as well. But the big thing is the Navy as a whole right now, we sit on mounds and mounds, petabytes of data. Where they're located, where we might not have a clue or have a clue, we are still trying to get them all consolidated into some sort of data warehouse, cleansed, and actually, in a sense, where we can actually do something great with it. So with that case, with that, of what we're working on, specifically at the shipyards, it's exactly that. 66 different applications, every single one of them, from logistics, maintenance, and everything else, all of them are going into one data warehouse. And in order to do so, and the reason why that's important is because you need a lot of data to actually do AI ML. Even just ML, like the lowest levels of like supervised learning, you need a lot of data. And you need that data to make sure that there's no biases or any other issues when you deploy it in production. So at least from a technical aspect, NAVSEA, at least for the next, I would say 2-3 years, we're really focused on making sure we do that right. The data is tagged, cleansed, and all of that. So we can have a high degree of assurance that when we deploy these capabilities, because they are going to be feeding into fixing warships and things like that, we want that data to be accurate. So that's what we're kind of working on. But what I'm going to focus on next really is like, hey, instead of 5 years, like these are the priorities, at least from a NAVSEA perspective, of what we're trying to do across all the shipyards. So the first thing that we want to focus on is education. I mean, all of these applications or AI tools and things that we're going to give to all the shipyards at the end of the day, the end users are going to be responsible for using them. I mean, we went from, at least from 10 years ago, like maybe just having an instant chat messaging capability. Email was just coming up, and that was the main source, all the way to now we're talking AI, ML, DevSecOps, all these other capabilities are coming out. End users, especially like warfighters in commands like mine, they they're not tech focused. They're here to execute their mission and make sure that the ships are ready. So one thing that's been helpful for us, especially since Enterprise, NAVSEA is providing these data analytics capabilities, we're like, hey, let's get these tools out to them ahead of time early, start educating them, work with the vendors to do a lot of these little trainings, workshops, and things to start learning about what the capabilities are. So that's been extremely helpful from a data analytics perspective. We've been working with our end users for a better half a year and a half. And now that we actually have the capabilities, they actually know, hey, this is exactly what I need to do with the data. This is how I can actually get to the product that I actually want to create. And here's what I need to do to get there. And you get buy-in across the entire command for that. And then the second one is having those tools, you're going to have them start playing with it, but in their minds, they're actually going to start thinking, hey, now that I somewhat understand this tool, I know exactly what pain points I have that I can solve with this tool. Many times in the government, I see we're just so used to just handing people money and saying, hey, this tool, if we buy it, is going to fix our problem. And then 2 years down 2 years down to execution, we're like, hey, why aren't we delivering? Well, what problem are we trying to solve? And everyone's just looking around the room, all the govvies like, well, shoot, we didn't even think about that. We just threw money at the problem. So one of the big things from the shipyard perspective, especially NAVSEA, Admiral Richmond, and all of them are like, hey, start playing with the tools, start understanding and documenting what your pain points are. But once you get that, start small. And then find something, especially with AI, that takes a lot of data, figure something that's a small pilot, start training a small model there, and then apply it to whatever problem you're trying to solve. And then have a roadmap to scale upon success or pivot and continue to try. But I'd argue that a lot of other commands in the Department of Defense are on the similar, or if not the same journey that we're having right now. Because AI is new. We are all still trying to learn together. We are all open to working with industry and just learning together. And that's how I think is going to make sure that we are prepared for any kind of conflict moving forward. And that's it.
Perfect. Anything to add, Vincent or Lauren, before we move on? Okay.
Just that I agree with him.
Okay, perfect. So, Lauren, we'll move on to your question. What are some real-world use cases for AI ML in the Pacific, and how can this technology be leveraged to solve problems facing the DoD?
Thank you. So I'm just going to tell you right now, I'm not an engineer, so I'm going to give it to you at a very high level, from my perspective. But I think there are many ways that, the DoD can leverage AI to help address some of the challenges that they face. One of them is we can integrate AI into intelligence and surveillance, where we can actually, identify unusual behaviors or patterns and potential vulnerabilities so that we can respond to and act more quickly to incoming threats. We can also, train AI models to learn what is, normal or abnormal behavior. So we can use that for like our undersea or space-based assets, where we can actually identify, hey, there's a unidentified object or unauthorized vehicle approaching, actually automate, and trigger the alerts to our team so they can respond to any oncoming threats faster. I also think, we can use our human analysts, which I think is a very important piece to the puzzle, where they can contextualize and interpret the data, the AI-driven data that's coming in, and actually make them more intelligent in their decision-making. And then I also think you can use it in operational planning and predictive analysis, where you can use AI to look at patterns, trends, correlations in data, and then apply that to predict potential outcomes of various operational scenarios. That can give us a higher level of insight into likely outcomes of different courses of action. Ultimately, again, I still think it's up to the humans to make that ultimate decision over what operational plan you're putting in. And then from a disaster relief perspective, I think you can, use AI to analyze historical disaster trend data and weather patterns to help, our communities and our response agencies, predict, and prepare and evacuate if necessary. You can even use like image-based, analysis that creates, detailed disaster maps that actually assess, the extent of damage or potential, affected areas and actually, help us, plan the most efficient route, for the aid and delivery of resources. And then, with resources, I think supply chain, I see a lot of that here with UiPath, is how do we automate some of the supply chain, and you can look at, like demand data where you can actually analyze, inventory stock levels and automate the process of actually reordering, specific items, making sure that their materials are being delivered, when and where we need them. Mm-hmm. You can, use AI to even help with, transportation schedules or supplies, the delivery to make sure that our military shipments are getting, the supplies that they need, on time, and with the most efficient route.
Perfect. Yeah. Thank you so much, Lauren. Anything to add, Peter or Vincent, to that?
Yeah, I do have one. Lauren, I think you are an engineer because that was an incredibly insightful response. That's a lot of applications I couldn't even think of for AI. So that was awesome.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Perfect. Thank you. Okay, and next question for Vincent. What are the threats that we expect to face from our adversaries utilizing AI ML, and how do we defend against these attacks? Are there any lessons we can learn from the methods that they use?
Sure. Well, I want to also say thank you for hosting. Thank you, IBM, for sponsoring. And I don't know if it was by design from the AFCEA coordinators, but it is freezing in this room right now. This is not how we prepared, but we'll push through the shivers. So what we really feel right now our adversaries are getting after is, honestly, I think the biggest threat is the fact that it's not as though they have a novel solution or approach to AI and ML per se. I think it's more so about the fact that they can innovate faster than we can. And, I think that that's probably understood throughout the room, is that we have to go through bureaucracy, policy, and approval. The fact that an ATO on average takes 12 to 18 months to get approved is not a great sign. The fact that an O-plan development process takes 24 months to happen and then the technology and landscape has changed by then. These are the elements in our current structure that hold us back, simply. And so for our adversaries, for right or wrong, they don't have those problems because of the way that they run it, which I obviously will not condone. But if we can learn ways in which we can adapt and modernize our process of allowing these technologies to come into the hands of our soldiers, of our military and armed forces, things that are already happening, like changing the construct of ATO to continuous ATO, right? Where every time I change a line of code or retrain my machine learning model, I don't have to wait for someone at a desk 9 months later to tell me it's okay to deploy that latest model. Really leaning into agile methodologies so that even from a process of software development practice, we're iterating faster. We have that feedback loop. And the whole lens really here in the region of PEMTech and JADC2 is taking these cutting edge capabilities into the exercises where they can actually be proven, on whether or not they support interoperability, optimization of the various use cases that both of you captured, both from supply chains, logistics, to even tracking, a specific target of interest. There's many ways that we can get after these problems. I'll share a bit of what I experienced a couple weeks ago. So, as mentioned, I support USERPAC right now in the G2. And over at Shafter, we just had an AI ML summit a couple weeks ago. And brilliant ideas came from that, which I can't share in this room right now. But underpinning all of that was the question of, where will these models be hosted? How are we going to train these? Where will they be deployed? How will our users access them? And it was great that we have all of the use cases already in mind, but I actually think that right now, even further to get ahead of our adversaries where they've already been able to accomplish these things and implement the infrastructure that's required, if we start to educate and improve on the data literacy that Peter was mentioning and helping people understand how these capabilities actually work and function, I think holistically at large, specifically USERPAC, INDOPACOM at large, the U.S., we will start to actually be able to rinse and repeat the infrastructural model that is required to allow all of this awesome stuff to happen so that we can start to catch up to the pace that our adversaries are setting in terms of innovation and technology in the field. and of course, specifically very much so in region. So thank you for the question.
Actually, I'm going to add on to that, Vince. You hit a very soft spot when you're talking about ATOs. So, you're absolutely right. I mean, the biggest thing is, the government as a whole, and again, personal opinion, the government as a whole, especially in IT organizations, we're so used to just not accepting risk. Because in the older days, legacy technology, on-prem, layer 1 to layer 7, it took time to actually do an upgrade. But now that technology is still following the track of Moore's Law, new technology is coming out every day, we are still trying to fit that, the round peg in that square hole. Yeah. So and one of the best things my ISSM actually told me when I first showed up was, he's like, RMF, what does the M actually stand for? It's risk management. It's not risk minimization. So as CIO, lean into that. It's okay. But when you're doing the RMF package, you're understanding what the threat landscape actually is and how to control it. But there is always going to be some risk that you can inherit. So I encourage other folks, especially military and government folks in those IT positions, lean for it. And it's okay to fail, but at least if you've identified it, you know how to manage it. So thank you, Vince. That was awesome.
Thank you, Peter.
Thank you, Peter and Vincent, for those responses. So now we have a few extra questions for you guys. Anyone feel free to chime in if you feel like you got an answer for it. So how can we foster a culture of continuous learning and adaptability within the defense sector to stay ahead of the rapidly evolving landscape of AI and emerging technologies?
Sure. I could take first swing here. Sure. In supporting the G2, I work with a lot of intelligence analysts, right? Both signal and GeoInt as well. And what we're realizing is that they are incredibly talented and smart people that just weren't necessarily exposed to the training that would arm them up to really understand how to handle or even actually build some of these capabilities themselves. So what we're seeing in our space is that there should be an entire effort towards upscaling the talent of the staff in the space, right? So we call it data literacy. It could be called many things. But they're interested and eager, especially when it's of a generation of this level. They know technology, right? But I think the way that they're brought through that process of becoming a certified, signal intelligence analyst officer, if you will, that's not, I don't think, a part of the curriculum right now exactly. And some of that's changing. But one of the biggest things we're doing is saying, hey, take the folks in this shop that want to learn that stuff. If you want to learn Python coding or machine learning or any next tool or technology, make that a part of what we offer. Send them to a training for a month or two. And when they come back, they can then collaborate with the technologists in the space, and we'll arm them up to start to build their own scripts, their own data pipelines, their own dashboards, and maybe one day their own machine learning models when we reach that point. And honestly, all that will do is accelerate everything, because now you're not bottlenecked by the technologists that you brought into the space. You're actually empowering the staff that you already have there to keep up and stay at the same pace as technology if they get to continue to learn along the way.
Perfect. Thank you. Anyone else?
Yeah, sure. No, I think, I think training is key. We do, from a vendor perspective, we're the ones who are, getting, industry to purchase, cybersecurity tools and whatever tools to help in their environment. And I think it's also important from a vendor perspective to make sure that we're keeping up with the teaching of our tools and how to use them properly, and not just, making a sale and walking away, but really being that support for a lot of the teams, making sure that they're using it safely, responsibly, and we can be that, level of expertise for them.
Industry never just walks away, right?
You hope so, yeah.
Well said, Lauren.
Anything to add?
Yeah, all right, the fun government perspective, because there's so many rules around learning during work and all these other things. But you know what? I'm a millennial. I'm going to embrace it. So one of the biggest things that I've done, actually the fifth value for my department, is learn and be curious. So what that means is I've actually given an hour during work 3 times a week, and I've pretty much bought every single online learning thing you can think of. LinkedIn Learning, A Cloud Guru, Pluralsight, there's a million other ones, vendor training and all of that. And I told them, hey, 1 hour a week, you're going to put down work, and you're going to go focus on what you want to learn, as long as it's work-related, like computer tech. If you want to be a programmer and you work at the help desk, go learn that. Here's some code, like coding paths or things that you want to do. Oh, you're in cybersecurity, but you don't know what to protect. So, well, here's cloud. Here's how to actually learn. Here's a solutions architect course that you can take to actually understand infrastructure, so you can better understand how to protect it. So I think like building that culture upon like all the other stuff, working with the vendors, the system integrators, and things like that. I think this partnership is incredible because you have to leverage the knowledge that industry has and help incentivize your people and empower them to want to stay, want to learn, want to do better. So, I mean, from a culture perspective, that's absolutely it. Yes, not all the work gets done all the time, but hey, are they happy? Do they want to show up to work every day and want to do better? Yes. So, took a while, but it's been fun.
No, that's good. I mean, we talk about how do you retain your employees, and that's a big problem right now.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. And then last question before we move on. What AI ML technology is available to DoD personnel currently, and who is the target audience for using it?
I'm assuming I have to go first on this one. I'm going to be honest. I don't know. It's such a large landscape right now. I know off the top of my head, coming from the Pentagon, CDAO office is obviously huge doing it. Joint Artificial Intelligence Center has been doing it for a long time as well. They're focused on most of the mission-critical applications, think Spec Ops, three-letter agencies, things like that. DARPA is doing a lot of it. But I would say, like, writ large, there's a lot of learning capabilities, but not really any tools available for us, at least from an enterprise perspective, that we can readily use. However, teaching my command, I've let them know and incentivized them and said, hey, look, OpenAI or Bard is completely free and open. Yes, don't use it for work and don't plug that, like our information in there. Please do not do that. However, on your free time, learn how to use that tool and actually learn how to use it to offset and help automate your daily tasks, your jobs, and things like that. Because it's only a matter of time until, like, before all those tools become approved, get securely deployed at impact level 4, 5, 6, to the point where now they actually know how to utilize these tools to their advantage. So I've encouraged everyone, hey, play around with the tools. Our executive director came in the next day and was like, hey, I wrote my entire paper for my PhD last night with ChatGPT. And I was like, please tell me you did not submit that without cross-checking it. And he's like, oh, I thought it was all original text. And I was like, oh, man, we got a lot to learn.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's been fun.
Yeah, from a UiPath perspective, we leverage a lot of AI internally to help some of our customers. I work a lot with DHA right now, and a lot of the conversations we're having is how do we get our patients, back in the hospitals, improve patient experience. So we're actually using like predictive analytics with some of our automations to help, streamline some of the processes of getting patients registered, checked in, making sure that they can get their prescriptions refilled. It's a pretty tedious, doing care metrics, looking at, the data that is coming in from responses of the patients. I also support AFI. So again, going back to supply chain and logistics, making sure that you have enough supply and demand of different sources. They have different warehouses, which warehouse is closer to get that demand to the location that they need it quickly. Going back to DHA and supply chain, we're using predictive analytics for, what happens if you're on the battlefield and you're a triage nurse and you need to supply, blood in order to save someone's life. What happens if you don't have that blood on hand or, other, first aid? So we've been doing that a lot in the DoD. And there's other Navy, Air Force. Air Force is a big customer of ours that we can always take that offline.
Nice.
Yeah.
And just to layer on, the good news is it's never been more accessible right now. When you talk about what AI tools should we have our military go investigate to get an understanding, I'm going to use a dirty term here. ChatGPT is a wonderful gateway drug for people that want to understand AI and ML, and they only then want more, right? And then even as you start to lean into that and understand the different AI approaches there, from large language models to reinforcement learning behind the scenes. But if you're asking for specific tools or even, courses, plenty on Coursera, on Udemy from, professors from the top schools in the country. You can even jump straight into AWS, set up a free account, play with their AWS SageMaker. It's literally, hey, ML simplified for the layman's, if you will. But I would say just keep asking questions. And certainly in the commercial realm and sphere, there's so many resources available. And the classified, I think that's where we need to lean a little bit more in on, right? You can't use ChatGPT on a secret network today. And there's companies like Microsoft that are trying to build things like Ask Sage into their baseline to make that available for everyone. And that's going to be cool when it comes down. But I would say just keep learning and keep practicing and keep gaining exposure, because the more you know, the more we will all remove, sorry about the bump, we'll all remove the black box away from AI that everyone thinks is there. It is understandable. You just have to lean in.
Okay, great. Thank you, guys. So now we will move into the audience questions portion. So questions that were submitted via the email. So we'll just give a few minutes for those to pull up, and anyone from any one of you guys can feel free to answer those as well.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you again. To remind our audience, we do have our email for submitting your questions on the screen. Again, as a reminder, this session does qualify for continuing education units, and in order to qualify, it must go for 60 minutes. So make sure you send in plenty of questions.
Can we get a time check?
Yeah, I need my CEU, so start asking questions, please.
The first question for our panel: how will AI impact facility-related control systems and Step 6 of the risk management framework known as continuous monitoring? Will this FRCS AI validation become part of the worship building and commissioning process?
Man, okay, maybe I take that back and say I don't want the CEU anymore. Man, you're making me work for it.
Feels like it was built for you, Peter.
Yeah. That is a phenomenal question. So just to translate, Step 6 of the RMF is assess and authorize. It's continuous monitoring. So what that means is once you get your ATO, every 30, 60, 90 days, you have to go into EMAS, do a scan of all your systems that you have in the package to make sure that you're actually scanning and remediating all those vulnerabilities. For a network of over 3,000 assets, yes, it's kind of small in comparison to larger companies, but 3,000 assets spread across Yokosuka, Sasebo, and Singapore. It is an astronomical task. And even then, the scanning methodologies that we have to use and the tools that we use are so dated to the point where I'm DDoSing my own systems during the day when I'm scanning every single asset. I'm not kidding. So how will AI impact facility-related control systems? I think I had a good conversation with a company today that's kind of moving towards that realm. And I think that one of the big things is, predictive, predictive vulnerability scanning and remediation, which what I mean by this is, let's say, for example, you scan a laptop, right? There are 10 Cat 1s, 30 Cat 2s, and maybe 40 Cat 3s. Cat 1s are the highest severity. Well, depending on that, even when you get to Cat 1s and Cat 2s, there's multiple levels of severity, impact, and all of these other things. But one of the big things that we struggle is, hey, it'll take us a full team of 10 and also 50 hours for the whole week to remediate every single one of them. So it'd be really nice if there's an AI tool that can read that, go through and actually search its entire database and say, hey, hey, Log4j, oh my God, all right, this is the Cat 1 that we need to focus on, and help us prioritize that whole backlog, whether it's Cat 1, Cat 2s, Cat 3s, to help us remediate it and, again, manage that risk. So getting towards automating that could save us a lot of the overhead and burden that we're really facing today, because we're wasting a lot of that time sitting there at cybersecurity engineers with our sysadmins being like, hey, we have to keep the network alive, but we also have to be cyber safe. So what's going to fall off the plate? And being able to get this tool would help us really manage that. So hopefully I answered that question, whoever asked it, but great question. Yes.
Thank you. Next question for the panel. How can we ensure the data we use to build AI models is clean?
I'll take this swing because clean is subjective, isn't it?
So obviously you need the proper practice of data management, data tagging, structuring to ensure that at the very least what's going into machine learning and AI models is what you intend to go into it, right? Just as any system, if it's junk in, it's junk out. But when you describe clean, you may be, whoever asked this question, may be implying, hey, how do we assure that an adversary didn't somehow spoil that data that would change the results of our machine learning model? You may say, how do we ensure that data doesn't come in the wrong format or schema, which again just goes back to proper configurations of data pipelines that would check those, flag those, and kick them out the pipe. But also, I think I'll use this question to share a bit of what the world at large is trying to think around how they approach this problem. So in the EU, they're starting to classify impact levels for AI, right? And so you can imagine at the lowest impact level, this AI will suggest to you on Snapchat what type of sneakers you want to buy. There's no real risk if that data isn't clean, right? The worst case scenario is your sneakers are blue instead of purple or whatever it ends up being. Then there's the highest impact level where this AI is being trained to detect cancerous tumors on an MRI scan, right? That is very high level impact. We have to be very sure that what we're passing into that is the proper data, that there's the appropriate, honestly, policy in place to ensure that whatever they utilize that machine learning model for, that there's some human remaining in that loop so that we don't risk lives. And actually, there's a documentary that explains this better than I will, but when they started to train that data, when you ask the question, what is clean data, they fed it all of the models that had a cancerous cell or tumor on the image, right? They pass all those images into the model. Then they pass a bunch that kind of looked like it, but it wasn't. And it had almost 100% accuracy to detect when it was cancer or not. But what they didn't realize is that the two images, the one with the cancer and the one without, every time that there's cancer, it comes with a ruler on the MRI because the doctor came out and measured literally the centimeters of that cancer. So all the model learned is that if there's a ruler in the image, the person has cancer. And if there is no ruler in the image, the person doesn't have cancer. So I think this is a bit of an abstract question that I don't know if I could answer very directly, but hopefully that gives you guys an understanding of how we need to be thinking about what clean data really is.
That's a great answer.
Thank you.
Next question. What are some techniques to help address unintended bias in data sets?
I guess I'll lean in again. I think I somewhat just hit on that to a degree, right? But really when you're talking about a bias-y, that would bring my mind towards some of these AI models that are being leveraged for recruitment, right? And so, hey, we want to read someone's resume and, maybe even see their image when it comes through, and we're going to determine who's hireable, right? Well, you have to think about who's even training this model. And it's not to say that a certain group of people should or shouldn't be. I think it's more to say that a diverse group of people should be a part of that process. For better or worse, oftentimes it is a predominantly whitewashed, crew of people that build those. There's stories you've heard about these, and they're also predominantly male, right? And no one really is even able to pick up on those biases until they start to check the accuracy of that model compared to the submissions of applications. And it goes, well, why 80% of the time the white male is hired, but only 20% of the time the any other label, right, or group is not. And it really then goes back to the question of, well, how was that model originally built? How was it originally trained? How was that data originally vetted in the first place before it went in? So it really does get towards the methodology and the approach to how you do this training. And from the ground up, you have to ensure that you have some level of diversity and coverage, because otherwise you could end up with unintended bias and not even know until later down the road those results are actually verified once it's been implemented.
Yeah, you stole the words right out of my mouth. But definitely want to add on to that. I mean, we're talking about supervised learning. I mean, yes, you can train an algorithm and then do unsupervised learning on like a lot of metadata and stuff. You'll get something out of it. However, the majority of the applications and use cases that we're probably going to be talking about for our use in the military is pretty much supervised learning. So biases are a thing, because even in the military today, we sometimes make biased decisions. Yet we do ask for recommendations, but I mean, I'm sure all of you guys at one point have asked for a recommendation, and you're like, I already have my mind made up, but I'm going to let you speak, and it's not going to change my mind. So imagine that person or a group of those people thinking the same way, and they're training and labeling all this data to train the model. If they all labeled it the same way, they're trying to get towards a result that they want. Yeah. Therefore, whatever they create, that AI model, once it's deployed, it's going to tell them what they want to hear. So that's where, going back to it, like the education piece of telling everybody, hey, like, you have to learn and be curious. Like, these are very, very, very incredible tools, but if you don't know how to use them effectively, you're going to get what you want to see, but you're not actually going to get the ground truth. So especially in an operational environment, we just need the data. We need to understand that, but we also need to train our warfighters to also see, like, hey, maybe this model actually has some biases. I got to actually pivot and like go back to the model and fix it. So big recommendation to remove bias. Get the warfighters in early. Just get the subject matter experts in. Don't care who it is. If you want to work with our shipyard, call me. I'll go find you an engineer. But those are the right people you want to talk to, because they'll just give it up to you front and be like, no, this is bias. I'm not going to use this. Like, this is wrong. So that's a good question.
Thank you. Next question. 9 of the top 10 hypersonic research institutes and all 10 of the top undersea drone research organizations are Chinese, and they throw millions of students at AI for military decision-making. How do we contend with China's millions of students that are thrown at hard problems?
They did not give us easy questions in the audience, did they? This is, what were you just mentioning?
Oh, we were talking about policy before.
Sure.
Policies are different.
So, and it does get back to even the way that, I think the education systems are structured in China compared to here, right? Right now, we're still battling with the fact that all of our students are passing their tests because of ChatGPT, and we're resistant to that change in academia and how people learn. I don't live in China. I have not gone to a Chinese university myself, but I would imagine, because they're certainly more forward-leaning in adopting these technologies, that they're probably also less resistant in integrating them into their curriculum for whatever it is that they're trying to learn. How we contend, I think, if we're talking specifically about how can DoD support the United States in contending that educational race almost, maybe more incentivizations, maybe more scholarships, maybe sponsor certain students to go learn, these high-level education courses so that they can actually meet that pace that our adversaries are setting. And then even furthermore, I think it plays back to what we were talking about of upscaling the force that we already have, right? Maybe we can't contend with them in the academics, but at the very least, if we're training our soldiers just as much as they are training their students or educating, maybe we can catch up. Maybe we can meet that inflection point and actually start to, take that lead on, I guess, the learning at large that takes place from country to country.
Even comparing curriculums.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
I almost wish the people asking these questions were in the room, because they may be able to help us, hone it in a little more as to why they're asking. But over to you, Peter.
Yeah, I'm just going to say my lawyer will not be happy if I answer this question. However, to generalize it, absolutely double down on incentivizing. So I know DoD CIO is doing a lot of great things right now to ensure that we incentivize 2210 series IT specific roles, cyber specific roles to recruit, but not only recruit, retain, train, and provide them a pipeline to actually keep them happy and empowered. So there's a lot of efforts that are happening there, especially in the Navy. Admiral Jim Walters at N1 has just announced that there is a lot of retention programs specifically for IT or people who even are a different MOS or a designator that have specific cybersecurity certifications to say, hey, if you're interested in this, we'd love to keep you and extend you, give you a bonus, or let you go to another school to get an advanced degree. So we are looking at other ways. I think, especially from an American perspective, we all want to feel we wake up and we want to feel empowered, and we want to feel like we're contributing to whatever organization we're at, especially for warfighters like me, government civilians as well. So finding other ways to incentivize people and make them want to wake up and actually do better and continue on with their career. I mean, that's the investment that I think is the right thing. So that's how we can fight back.
It's been highlighted this week that data scientists has not been an occupation in the DoD until very recently. Peter, you mentioned focusing on data tagging and creating a consolidated data warehouse. Do the Navy and Air Force have the right people to make that happen, or how can we adjust to meet those needs? And perspectives from our industry participants would also be welcome.
Views are my own. No, we do not. I even think industry had this problem when data science or even DevSecOps first came out. They just looked at the people who were crunching Excel spreadsheets, and they pretty much looked at their position description or their job and pretty much was like, congratulations, you're a data scientist now. And that's what happened to me when I was at the Pentagon as a lieutenant. And I was like, okay, well, crap. So what do I have to do? And they're like, okay, well, here's this thing called Jupyter Notebooks or Databricks or all of these other things. You can do this, right? And I'm like, what? With what? What do you want me to build? Dashboards, do machine learning, all these other things. So in a long-winded way, absolutely not. We are even still trying to figure out what that is. However, yeah, going back to it, like we are working with industry partners right now, and we're being upfront and honest, saying we don't know what we don't know. We need to pull you guys in. We need to learn more. Please teach us how and how to get us, like lead us, we're the horse, lead us to the water and help us out and teach us what we need to do. But that goes back to just creating that culture of like continuous learning that we're really embracing right now all across the fleet, even mission warfighters and stuff, to give them the tools, help them learn and get skilled up. So just because the HR stuff hasn't caught up yet doesn't mean that we're not stopping to learn or adapt. Did that help answer the question?
That was my question, and yes, it did. I would be curious, LT, if you have any perspective on it from not the Air Force's perspective, but your perspective as an Air Force.
I think kind of in the similar boat, right? So you're saying he was kind of just like thrown into it. I think they're doing a really good job, especially now from my perspective, just going through tech school and things like that. And what they're actually teaching us is what we're supposed to be doing. They're integrating a lot more like capstone courses and planning and really long, intensive briefings that actually get after the phases of how we're supposed to plan. So, not every, I'm just at a comm squadron, so every comm squadron is that kind of predictive and very focused on planning. But I do think that there is more of a focus on that type of planning to get us kind of ready and posture us so that we can start kind of getting better to meet those needs. And I think personally, just from my perspective and where I've at still being relatively new, I think we're doing better at it. And I think they're only kind of like making it better with the curriculum. So I don't know if that helped from my okay.
And as a small add, from an industry perspective, it actually excites us a lot to see so many COCOMs establish a chief data office, right? I mean, we're still rolling through those waves. Some are on their second shift. Some are still standing up what that structure and organization even means or does. But that's a good sign. My answer may be not yet. Do we have enough? But I do feel like we're heading in the right direction.
Thank you for sticking with the difficult questions. We think we'll give you a little bit of a break here. This is for each of the members of the panel. If you had time to learn one new technology or concept, what would it be and why? What potential applications do you see in your respective lines of work?
I might need a bit more time to think.
Yeah.
So I could answer this from a personal or from a what's best for the job at hand right now, if you will. When it comes to technology, I mean, you guys already chose the topic of the forum, and it's the reason why we're here, right? I think that if you don't know AI now, you should learn it. I will also give you the disclaimer. I do a whole lot in enabling AI from a solutions architect perspective. I myself am not an AI engineer. I have not yet built my own nodal network, but I certainly help build the data pipelines to train those models. So for myself, I'm still learning a lot. I'm a student of AI right now, and I just happen to have the background that supports everything that AI needs to operate. But if you're really asking about what is the coolest technology that is the next, frontier, the next unknown, quantum is really starting to become something that we're going to start to leverage, right? Post-quantum cryptography in terms of how we pass data to and fro, and every way in which we thought encryption would defend us before is now going to be completely obsolete in 10 years, 5 years. So that's really exciting. I have no idea what that will actually bring, and I would assume that most of you all probably feel the same way.
Yeah, I'm going to bring up a conversation we were actually having prior to the panel of just the way, jobs are going to be changing as AI evolves and is being implemented in the DoD. ChatGPT, we were talking about how, from a programming perspective, they're actually making new positions of how to get the most out of ChatGPT and hiring people to actually know, what input should you be putting into, these AI models to get the most information out of them. I think that's pretty cool. I'm excited to see what comes out of that.
Yeah, prompt engineering.
Yeah, prompt engineering, that's it.
A whole new field.
Yeah.
Okay, so they took the two fun ones. So I'm going to come left field here and do something crazier. Robots.
Yes.
Drones. And hole scanners, things like that. Ship repair is tough. It's a very dangerous line of work, especially in a dry dock, when you have to go hang on the side of a ship 100 feet in the air, maybe sometimes 200 feet in the air, and you have to go scan the side of a hole with a little scanner like this, and you have to go the whole entire ship by yourself. And you're just straddled along, and you can't mess up, because if you mess up or you miss something, you're going to miss a gap, or you're going to have to start right over. Exactly. So, we are trying to test and learn new capabilities. Like, our engineers are like, hey, how do we just remove the middleman, us, from that picture, find a drone, program it for it to map out an entire ship, and then have it scan the entire hole itself for us, so we don't have to do that. That would be incredible. Frankly, if I had all the time in the world right now, that's something that I would be focused on right now, because that saves time and money. That makes us more efficient. But now it removes us from doing all the manual, I call it the manual intensive work, so we can now upskill those engineers and actually have them learn how to read those diagrams and focus on analyzing them to actually get towards predictive maintenance and be like, hey, this signature looks a little bit off here. I predict, and let me run it through this model that I've already trained, I would say the next 8 months, because of the salt water and temperature of the water, this hole is going to have a large, probably 3 to 5 inch crack to it. But we can't get there because we spend all the time doing the manual intensive stuff. So learning that, leveraging drones to do a lot of the hole scanning for rust and corrosion, things that NAVSEA are actively looking at right now, especially even underwater as well. And even going into water tanks to see what the insides of tanks look like. So that's a cool technology that I'd love to have more time to play with. Call me if you have one. I want to play with it.
Thank you. Next question. Are there applications or use cases that you believe AI should not be used for?
Back to the hard questions.
Do you want me to go?
I do not think AI should ever be the sole decision-making moment in any type of weaponry, right? It should not be able to fire without first advising someone to fire. It can make recommendations all the way on targeting, weapon pairing, sensor to shooter optimizing all day. But as soon as we cross that line, I think are in territory we don't want to be. And it's even interesting because, drones have been such an instrumental part of what's happening in Ukraine right now. We're starting to see, the new way that war happens, if you will.
And there were some questionable situations there that I feel have even, if I'm remembering what I heard correctly, the UN is even questioning, was that fair warfare? You told drones that they could just fire if they saw certain, specific things from adversaries, of course.
Well, how do you teach them morals?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's a bigger question, but until we figure that one out, they should not, I think, be behind the trigger.
Yeah.
Who's seen iRobot? Exactly. So 2 things. They should never be sentient or autonomous. Period. So just remember, AI is trained by humans. It is a neural network. It is a program, in the layman's terms, it is a program at the end of the day. It'll never actually, yes, with the amount of data and processing power, and maybe down the road, it can actually see, think, feel, and all these other things. However, just remember, when you interact with it, it will continue to learn and update its algorithm and things like that. So if you start feeding it biases and you keep interacting with it at one point, even if it's sentient, you're going to start creating that algorithm, create bias in that algorithm itself. So I think it is a supplementary tool. I think it always should be. And I think that's actually how we actually leverage it to our advantage. But I do not want to see a robot vacuuming my house that's standing up and then cleaning the windows at the same time. I'd be terrified. So I'll stick with Roombas.
Yeah. Humans should still have the ultimate decision-making authority over any autonomous system.
Agreed.
And be kind to your Alexas at home.
My bad.
Do you have any thoughts on how to make the evolutionary change you're discussing with AI and ML while the military and government are fulfilling their missions with existing processes? How do you build the next generation vehicle when you're inside and operating the existing one?
I wish we don't say this often in our AI delivery to the DoD and region, but almost every time we describe it as we're building the plane as we are flying it. And we almost just hope that someone builds the runway in time before we run out of gas as well. And to map that analogy to a very literal, I do think that there needs to be a heavy push, which CDAO and Jake and the DoD at large are starting to realize. We need the infrastructure in place yesterday. Every use case that we're trying to get after, we're already held back because we're behind another 9 to 18-month process to get that capability in the hands, referring to my first answer, of course. And just to make sure I'm hitting the second question, how do you build a next generation vehicle? Yeah, you really have to learn how to optimize and innovate in the space that you're already in, immediately utilize the tools that you already have available, integrate them if possible, and if not, likely replace them with something that is interoperable, right? What we often face, whether it's from vendor or from policy, it's not just one vendor tool doesn't want to work with the other. It's one directorate doesn't want to share their data with the other. We have to tear down the silos. We need a data integration layer, at the very least for each branch. And then if we really want to get after joint fires network and joint interoperability, probably a shared data layer across the COCOMs for at least the headquarters at large. The very literals and specifics, whoever asked this question, if you want to dive into data orchestration and machine learning operational pipelines, we can get into the weeds. But that would be my answer for up here.
Yeah, I can maybe answer part of that question. From an automation perspective, I think if you're implementing automation into your existing workflows, giving time back in your employees' day so that they can actually focus, on making the evolutionary change to other strategic goals and missions that they're working on. If you can kind of get rid of, that everyday mundane stuff that takes up a lot of their time so they can actually go out and focus on the more important things. Great point.
Yeah, I love that, Lauren. I'm going to pull the thread on that. Just to expand, I call it the 70-30 rule. 70% of the time right now, I have my folks working on just keeping the lights on. We have to. That's our daily business. It's the government. We can't just say, no, screw that. 30% of the time, this is what digital transformation is about. It's not AI. It's not a new concept. It's digital transformation at the end of the day. If you want to change something, start somewhere. And I tell everyone, start small, but think big. Have that vision as the leader. Create that vision. but then have your folks say, hi, hey, identify something small. Many times I see government organizations, I was part of one as well, and that was my lesson learned. We threw money and was like, hey, we're just going to nuke the old system, shut it down, and we're going to build the new thing at the same time. And everybody's like, well, what about the 500,000 sailors that have to get paid through this system? And then they're like, oh, don't worry, they'll figure it out. So, yeah, we can't do that. But what we learned from a lot of this digital transformation efforts is, hey, I'm a developer myself, but microservices architecture, and what that means is don't bite the elephant at once. Logically start at one portion of the elephant and say, okay, I'm going to start here, and I'm going to focus here and get my entire team focused. Through that, you'll start learning how to work together as a team, how to actually communicate, to actually start building these digital transformation things, building the processes to slowly start migrating more applications or developing or deploying new models. So before I get down into the rabbit hole, it's like soon enough, you'll all start learning to work together. You become a machine altogether. You're efficient, and you know how to get to point B. So I would say start small, think big, be patient, and communicate. It ain't easy.
Thank you again for rolling with the difficult questions. I'll now go ahead and pass it back to Lieutenant Dickerson to offer any final statements and wrap up the panel.
Perfect. Thank you. Those were hard questions. You guys did great. I got one. I didn't expect that. Thank you to that. Okay, awesome. So now we'll just go through any closing remarks you guys have. A couple minutes for that.
I'll be up here if you want to chat for a little bit, but you might have to give me a Mai Tai. They're fun. They're cool.
Thank you, Peter.
Yes, no, just thank you, everybody, for coming. Thank you, IBM. Thank you. It's just, we had a lot of great discussions before the panel. I learned a lot. We had very different perspectives on AI, so it's also just been a fun learning curve for me, just being able to be invited to this panel and kind of going down the rabbit hole of AI and ML and talking different points of view. So it's been fun.
Yeah, and a huge thank you. The fact that this forum right now is happening is, again, a good sign. And the questions, albeit hard, were very thought-provoking. And so if you guys want to follow up on any of those that we shared or covered, we will be around. But shortly, I think we're required to go to the Pauhana, so it may be over a Mai Tai if you're not quick.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Thank you all again. Super appreciate you. Thank you for having me as well. So now we're going to have Miss Tina Georgian up.
Give her a round of applause.
Great job, guys. Good job.
That was amazing. Love hearing the perspectives, so thank you very much for that. I'd like to thank our moderator, Lieutenant Dickerson, and all of our panelists, Peter, Lauren, and Vince, again, for this outstanding discussion. As a thank you for such an insightful discussion, a donation to the Windward Wounded Warrior will be made in your name on behalf of AFCEA. In addition, we also have traditional challenge coins highlighting AFCEA's 38th TechNet Indo-Pacific, so please see me on your way off the stage. Thank you to everyone who attended today, and thank you to those who helped coordinate our Emerging Leader panel. Thank you again, Terry Halverson, for your support of IBM for this panel, and we hope that you really got a lot out of this. So I'm just going to take 2 more minutes. The Pauhana reception doesn't start until 6, so you got some time. So just this is my last event that I'm doing for AFCEA. I'm retiring at the end of December, and it's been an amazing ride. I've been with AFCEA for 25 years, 15 as a volunteer and 10 on staff, and the journey has been amazing. And the mission of AFCEA is what brought me to AFCEA. The people are what had me stay, and it's been an amazing 25-year journey. For those of you who were at the lunch yesterday, the Hawaii chapter honored me with a wonderful lei and a beautiful artwork from one of the volunteers' husbands. It was really meaningful to me. I think that AFCEA is an ohana. And I just want to say that if you are not involved with AFCEA, I was talking to someone earlier today who said professionals join professional organizations. And I love that saying. And so otherwise, you're just going to work and doing a job. But I would just encourage you, this is my last chance to say all this. And for those of you who are under 40, we need you. You're the future of our association. For those of you who are not over 40, we need you. You are the continuance of our organization for now, and we need you to bring in folks under 40. There was a time when military folks would go to their first comm class, and on the desk would be an FCA application, and I'm getting nods, and people would be told, fill it out and turn it in on your way out. And because folks knew that young professionals, whether military or industry, needed an organization like FCA. And so they were told, if you're going to be in this line of work, you're going to be in FCA. We all love our lawyers. Our lawyers keep us out of trouble. But the lawyers have also made it so that folks cannot have an FCA registration on their desk and told to turn it in. It's also made it so our senior leaders are sometimes hesitant to put their arm around the younger person like they used to and say, hey, you really need to join FCA. What they can say is you need to join a professional association, and the one I happen to like is FCA. So if you are out there and you do have people working for you, suggest to them that they invest in themselves, invest in their future, invest in their professional organization. And if you happen to want to say mine is FCA, that's fine. But they do need to invest in a professional association and the networking that comes with it. So I just wanted to give one more comment on that and what FCA has done. I've had so many people I've had small businesses. I got my first $8 million contract from being part of the networking I do in FCA. We have a lot of military that joined right at the end of their career because they want to network to go get a job. What they've missed out on is the 20 years of network building that they could have had before they're retiring. So help us spread the word. We need you as the future of FCA. For me, it's been an amazing journey. There's never a good time to leave FCA, but for right now in my family, it's the right time to leave FCA. I'm excited. I'm going to be a life member, and I'm going to get Signal Magazine, and I'm going to read about all the wonderful things that FCA is doing and the chapter members. But for those of you who I know and have shared my journey, thank you. For those of you who I don't know, you're part of a great association. Continue the great work here in the Hawaii chapter or wherever you are. Mahalo. Mahalo for you folks for being part of this. Thank you all for being here. The Pauhana reception starts at 6 o'clock. You might have heard the thump, thump, thump and wonder what that was. That's the band. It's going to be a rocking time tonight. So go out, have fun, enjoy the rest of your week, and make it a great FCA day. Thank you.